The desert had swallowed sound. Sergeant Marcus Holloway pressed his back against the crumbling mud wall, feeling the ancient clay crack under his weight. His breathing came in controlled bursts through cracked lips. 20 meters away, 3 of his men were doing the same, weapons raised toward the compound entrance where shadows moved with purpose. The mission had been textbook until it wasn't. Extract the informant, exfil by dawn, home for debrief. Now the informant was dead, dawn was 2 hours gone, and the QRF was pinned in a village that didn't exist on any map they'd studied. The radio crackled. Static, then silence. Holloway keyed his mic twice. Nothing. He looked at Corporal Davies, who shook his head. Comms were dead, not jammed. Dead. That meant someone had taken out their relay, which meant someone knew they were coming, which meant this wasn't a compromise. It was a kill box. The sound started low. A rumble that Holloway felt in his chest before he heard it. The ground beneath his boots trembled. Davies looked up, eyes wide. The other men shifted, checking the ridgeline for artillery, for rockets, for whatever hell was about to rain down. But the sky remained empty. Clear desert blue, pitiless and vast. Then the rumble became a roar, not from the ground. From somewhere beyond the horizon, building like an approaching avalanche. Holloway had heard every aircraft the Air Force flew. 15 years in special operations had made him fluent in the language of engines and ordnance. This sound was different, lower, angrier, primitive. The enemy fighters in the compound heard it too. They stopped advancing. Holloway watched one of them step into the courtyard, tilting his head toward the sky, assault rifle lowering slightly. The man looked confused, then terrified. The roar became thunder. Holloway felt it in his teeth now, vibrating through his skull. He risked a glance upward and saw nothing but sun and blue. Then a shadow crossed the compound, fast, low, gone before his brain could process the shape. The radio burst to life with a voice that didn't belong to anyone in his unit. "Viper 6, Hatchet 1, I've got your position. Stay down." The voice was calm, female, utterly without fear. Holloway pressed himself flatter against the wall as the world exploded. Not with bombs, with sound. The A-10 Thunderbolt came in so low he could see the rivets on its belly. Twin turbofan engines screaming, nose pitched slightly down, the aircraft looked less like a machine and more like a predator. The GAU-8 Avenger cannon beneath its nose was 7 feet of rotating death, and when it fired, the world became noise and light and fury. The compound's north wall disintegrated. Not collapsed, disintegrated. 30mm depleted uranium rounds chewed through mud, brick, and rebar like tissue paper. The sound was a deep, guttural brrrrrt that shook Holloway's bones. Dust and debris fountained skyward. They pulled up at an angle that seemed impossible for something so ungainly, twin engines roaring defiance at physics. Holloway watched it climb, bank hard left, and vanish behind the ridge. For 3 seconds there was silence. Then screaming started inside the compound, not from his men, from the enemy. Holloway keyed his mic. "Hatchet 1, Viper 6, good effect on target. We need an exit vector. South wall is hot." The response came immediately. "Copy, Viper 6, painting you a road." 30 seconds. Holloway didn't know who Hatchet 1 was, didn't know how she'd found them without comms relay, didn't care. He signaled to Davies and the others, "Get ready to move." The A-10 came back from a different angle this time, lower if that was even possible. Holloway saw the pilot's helmet through the canopy for a split second before the cannon erupted again. This burst was surgical. The rounds walked along the southern compound wall in a perfect line, each impact exactly 2 feet from the last. The wall didn't just fall, it ceased to exist. Smoke and dust created an instant corridor. "Viper 6, your exit is clear. Move now, I'll cover." Holloway didn't hesitate. He broke from cover, weapon up, moving in a combat crouch toward the breach. Davies and the others followed in formation. As they ran, the A-10 orbited overhead like a guardian angel made of titanium and fury, its shadow crossing the ground in lazy circles. They made it 50 meters before the enemy responded. Muzzle flashes erupted from the rooftops. Rounds snapped past Holloway's head. He heard Davies grunt, saw him stumble. Then the world became thunder again. The A-10 rolled in from the east, nose dropping, and unleashed hell. The rooftop positions vanished in clouds of pulverized masonry. The aircraft pulled up, banked, and came around for another pass without pause. "Keep moving, Viper 6. Don't stop." The voice was still calm, still utterly in control. Holloway hauled Davies to his feet, saw blood on his shoulder, but the corporal was moving. They ran through smoke and chaos while above them Hatchet One methodically dismantled every enemy position with precision that bordered on artistry. When they finally cleared the village and reached the wadi where their vehicles should have been, Holloway expected to find them destroyed. Instead, the Humvees were intact, engines running, another team providing security. The A-10 made one more pass, waggling its wings, then climbed toward the sun. Holloway watched it go, that ugly, beautiful machine, and keyed his mic. "Hatchet 1, Viper 6, we're clear, thank you." Brief pause. "Glad I could help, Sergeant." Hatchet 1 returning to base. The radio clicked off. Davies slumped against the Humvee, medic already working on his shoulder. He looked at Holloway and laughed, the sound edged with hysteria. "Who the hell was that?" Holloway shook his head. "I have no idea." The debriefing at Bagram lasted 4 hours. Holloway sat across from 2 colonels and a major he didn't recognize, recounting the mission in exhaustive detail. They asked about the informant's death, about the communications failure, about the enemy's apparent foreknowledge of their position. Then they asked about Hatchet One. Holloway described what he could. The A-10, the voice, the precision. The colonels exchanged glances. The major made notes. Nobody offered explanations. When they finally dismissed him, Holloway was too tired to push. He found Davies in medical, shoulder stitched and bandaged, eating terrible cafeteria eggs. "They tell you anything?" Davies asked. "Nothing useful." They ate in silence for a while. Around them the base hummed with its usual controlled chaos. Helicopters taking off, trucks rolling out, soldiers moving with purpose toward destinations Holloway couldn't guess. "I asked around," Davies said finally. "About Hatchet One." Holloway looked up. "And?" "Nobody knows much, or nobody's saying, but there's this pilot, Captain Evelyn Thorne, call sign Hatchet, flies A-10s out of Kandahar, been in-country 8 months. That's it," Davies shrugged. "Also heard she's got more close air support sorties than anyone else in theater, and that she's not exactly popular with command. Why not? Apparently she has opinions, and she shares them, loudly." Holloway smiled despite his exhaustion. "My kind of pilot." Over the next week the story spread. Not officially. The military didn't publicize SAVE operations, and this one had too many uncomfortable questions attached. But soldiers talked. Word passed from unit to unit, base to base. The sergeant and his team pinned down in a nameless village. The A-10 that appeared from nowhere. The pilot who turned a kill box into an exit corridor with surgical precision. Details got embellished. The compound grew larger in each retelling. The enemy more numerous. The cannon runs more spectacular. But the core remained consistent. Someone named Hatchet had pulled off something remarkable. Holloway heard versions of his own story 3 different times before the week was out, each time from soldiers who swore they'd heard it from someone who was there. He never corrected them. A month later, Holloway's unit got orders for another mission. Different village, same endless desert. This time the intel was better. This time they had working comms. This time everything went according to plan until the ambush hit them 2 clicks from the objective. Holloway was calling for QRF when the radio crackled. "Viper 6, Hatchet 1, I'm 10 minutes out. Can you hold?" Holloway almost laughed. "Hatchet 1 will manage. Good to hear your voice." "Likewise, Sergeant, stay down. I'm coming in hot." The A-10 appeared exactly 10 minutes later, and this time Holloway got a better look. The aircraft was scarred with combat damage that maintenance had repaired but not hidden. Patched panels, mismatched paint. One of the vertical stabilizers showed scoring from what must have been a missile near miss. It was the ugliest, most beautiful thing Holloway had ever seen. Captain Evelyn Thorne made 3 gun runs, each one closer than the last, each one perfectly placed. When the enemy finally broke and scattered, she stayed overhead for another 20 minutes, orbiting, watching, ensuring Holloway's team could complete their mission and extract safely. Back at base, Holloway finally got a chance to meet her. She was shorter than he'd imagined, maybe 5'6", with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that seemed to catalog everything. She looked young, but her flight suit was faded and her boots were scuffed to hell. "Sergeant Holloway," she said, extending a hand. "Captain Thorne, good to finally meet you." Her grip was firm, confident. "I owe you my life," Holloway said. "Twice now," she shrugged. "I was in the area. Both times. I'm always in the area, that's kind of the job." They talked for an hour in the mess hall, Holloway buying her terrible coffee that she drank without complaint. She asked about his team, about Davy's shoulder, about whether the informant's intel had been worth the cost. She didn't talk about herself much. When Holloway asked how she'd found them the first time, with comms down, she just smiled. "I was doing a patrol sweep, saw smoke, came to investigate, lucky timing." Holloway didn't believe that for a second, but he didn't push. "Why Hatchet?" he asked instead. She was quiet for a moment, staring into her coffee. "My grandfather," she said finally. "He was a door gunner in Vietnam. They called him Hatchet because he could cut through problems, find solutions where nobody else could." She looked up. "He died before I was born, but my grandmother used to tell me stories. How he'd volunteer for the worst missions. How he'd stay in the air until everyone made it home." "Sounds like someone I know," Holloway said. Thorne smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "He was shot down over Laos. They never recovered his body." The weight of that hung between them. Finally Holloway said, "He'd be proud of you." "Maybe," Thorne said. "Or maybe he'd tell me I'm an idiot for following in his footsteps." She stood, draining the last of her coffee. "I've got another sortie in 4 hours, need to pre-flight." "Stay safe up there, Captain." "You too, Sergeant, try not to get pinned down again." "I'll do my best." She started to leave, then paused. "Holloway, that thing you did in that first village, keeping your team calm when everything went to hell, that's what kept you alive, not me. I just opened a door. You're the one who got them through it." Holloway watched her walk away, struck by how young she looked from behind and how old she'd sounded when talking about her grandfather. Davies found him 10 minutes later. "That her, Hatchet?" "Yeah. What's she like?" Holloway thought about it. "Professional, skilled, carries a lot of weight." Davies nodded. "Heard some of the other pilots talking about her earlier. They don't like her much." "Why not?" "Apparently she volunteers for every close air support mission. Doesn't wait for assignments. Just shows up on the radio and asks if anyone needs help." "And that's a problem," Davies shrugged. "Some think she's reckless, showboating. Others say she's bucking for medals." Holloway shook his head. "She's not doing it for recognition. She's doing it because she saw what her grandfather did and she's trying to live up to it." "That's a heavy burden." "Yeah," Holloway said. "It is." The weeks blurred together. Holloway's unit ran missions, and sometimes they went smooth and sometimes they didn't. 3 more times they ended up in situations where they needed air support. Twice, it was Apache helicopters that came to help. Once it was an F-16 that dropped ordnance from high altitude and disappeared before Holloway could even key his mic. But there were nights when he'd hear the distinctive sound of an A-10's engines in the distance and he'd feel a little safer. Word about Thorne kept spreading. More stories, more saves. A convoy ambushed on the highway to Kabul, Thorne providing cover for 90 minutes while they repaired a disabled vehicle. A patrol caught in a building collapsed during a firefight, Thorne hovering overhead, marking enemy positions for ground forces. A medevac helicopter taking fire, Thorne clearing the LZ with gun runs so precise that the rescue crew didn't sustain a single casualty. Some of the stories were certainly exaggerated, but enough of them were confirmed that a pattern emerged. Captain Evelyn Thorne was everywhere she was needed, and some places she wasn't officially supposed to be. The brass started taking notice, not in a good way. Holloway heard rumors that Thorne was ignoring proper channels, that she was responding to radio calls that weren't directed at her, that she was extending her sorties beyond acceptable fuel levels, that her aircraft had more flight hours than any other A-10 in theater and maintenance was struggling to keep up. Command tried to rein her in. Restricted her flight schedule, assigned her to less critical missions. She complied officially, but somehow she was still there when it mattered. Holloway didn't understand how until he talked to one of the maintenance sergeants who worked on her aircraft. "She's gaming the system," the sergeant explained. "Takes every shit mission they give her and finishes early. Then she's already airborne when the real calls come in. By the time command realizes what she's doing, she's already engaged." "That's got to catch up with her eventually," Holloway said. The maintenance sergeant grinned. "Probably, but until it does, she's saving a lot of lives." That night lying in his bunk, Holloway thought about burdens and legacies, about what it meant to carry a name forward, about the weight of trying to fill shoes that could never be filled. He'd seen Thorne's aircraft up close now multiple times. The nose art was subtle, just a small hatchet painted beneath the canopy rail, edges worn from the desert sun. No kill markings, no mission tallies, just the hatchet, simple and clean. In the morning, Holloway's unit got orders for a mission that made everyone uncomfortable. A compound raid in a village notorious for IED production. Intelligence suggested high-value targets. It also suggested heavy resistance. They rolled out at 406 vehicles, 30 men. The plan was solid. Breach, clear, extract. Thorne wasn't scheduled for air support on this one. They had an Apache team on call. But when the IEDs started going off, when 3 of their vehicles were disabled and the enemy came pouring out of buildings they hadn't expected to be occupied, when the Apache were still 15 minutes out and Holloway was calculating how many men he was going to lose before help arrived, he heard her voice. Viper 6, Hatchet 1, I'm 5 minutes out. Give me positions. Holloway could have cried with relief. He rattled off coordinates, described the situation in clipped phrases, tried to keep his voice steady. Copy all, Viper 6, going Winchester, stay tight, going Winchester, expending all ordnance. Holloway had never heard a pilot say it so calmly. The A-10 came in from the north, flying barely above the rooftops. Thorne made 4 gun runs in 6 minutes, each one threading between buildings, each one dangerously close to Holloway's position. The cannon's roar became a rhythm. Fire, pull up, orbit, dive, fire again. Holloway watched her work with something approaching awe. This wasn't random suppression. This was surgical. Each burst targeted specific positions, specific threats. When the Apache finally arrived, the enemy was scattered and broken. The compound was cleared with minimal resistance. 3 of Holloway's men were wounded, but none were dead. As they loaded the wounded into the vehicles, Holloway looked up and saw the A-10 one last time, silhouetted against the rising sun. It waggled its wings and flew west, engines fatting to a whisper, then silence. He never got a chance to thank her. 2 days later, Holloway heard that Captain Thorne had been grounded. Officially, it was for maintenance inspection of her aircraft. Unofficially, everyone knew it was because Command had finally decided she was too much of a liability, too reckless, too independent, too willing to bend rules. Davies brought the news to Holloway's quarters. They're saying she falsified flight logs, exceeded maximum airframe stress limits, ignored fuel protocols. Holloway felt anger rise in his chest. She saved dozens of lives. I know, Command knows too, but they care more about regulations than results. That's bullshit. Welcome to the military, Davies said. For a week, the base felt different. Holloway heard grumbling from other units. Men who'd been saved by Thorne, who knew her reputation, who understood what grounding her meant. It wasn't just about one pilot. It was about what that pilot represented. The missions continued without her. Close air support came from other pilots, other aircraft. They did their jobs professionally, competently. But something was missing. That voice on the radio, utterly calm, utterly confident. That willingness to push closer than regulations allowed. That sense that someone was watching over them who gave a damn. Holloway tried to visit Thorne at the transient quarters where grounded pilots stayed. She wasn't there. Nobody knew where she was, or if they did, they weren't saying. Then on day 8, everything changed. An operation went catastrophically wrong. A Ranger unit, deep in hostile territory, ambushed during an extraction. 3 helicopters shot down. 20 men trapped in a valley with no cover and enemies closing from 3 sides. Radio traffic was desperate. Every available asset was being scrambled. Holloway listened to the chatter in the operations center, feeling helpless. He wasn't infantry anymore. His team was grounded for rest and refit. All he could do was listen as men died. The air support coordinator was coordinating Apache, an AC-130, even a B-1 bomber for danger-close strikes. Everything was too slow. By the time help arrived, most of those Rangers would be dead. Then he heard it. That voice. Calm, steady, utterly without fear. Bulldog Actual Hatchet 1, I'm 3 minutes from your position, talk to me. The Ranger commander's response was ragged with stress and relief. Hatchet 1, we've got approximately 40 to 50 enemy fighters in the valley, hills on both sides. We're taking fire from elevation, multiple casualties. We need immediate suppression. Copy, Bulldog Actual, I see you. I'm coming in from the south. Mark your position with smoke. We don't have smoke. Then stay down and trust me. Holloway held his breath. Around him in the operations center, everyone was silent, listening, waiting. The sound of the GAU-8 came through the radio transmission, that distinctive BRRRRT, unmistakable and terrifying. Then the Ranger commander's voice shaking with emotion. Good effect, they're breaking. Thorne didn't respond. The cannon fired again, and again. Holloway could imagine it. The A-10 diving into that valley, threading between hills, flying so low the enemy couldn't track it. The cannon shredding positions. The aircraft pulling up at angles that stressed every rivet. For 8 minutes the battle raged. The radio was chaos. The Rangers moving, finding cover, returning fire. Thorne calling out positions, directing their movement. The cannon firing in controlled bursts. Then silence, long seconds of it. Finally Thorne's voice, slightly breathless now. Bulldog Actual, you're clear to move north. Exfil birds are 2 minutes out. I'm Winchester and Bingo Fuel returning to base. Hatchet 1, you just saved 20 lives, thank you. Just doing my job, Bulldog Actual, get your men home. The radio clicked off. Holloway realized he'd been holding his breath. Around him, others exhaled too. Someone started clapping. It spread through the operations center until everyone was applauding a pilot who wasn't there to hear it. An hour later, Thorne's A-10 landed at Bagram. Holloway was waiting on the flight line with half the base. When the canopy opened and she climbed down, she looked exhausted. Her flight suit was soaked with sweat. Her hands shook slightly as she did her post-flight inspection. A colonel approached her. Holloway couldn't hear what was said, but he saw Thorne's face, expressionless, professional. She saluted. The colonel returned it. Then, surprisingly, he extended his hand. She shook it. When the colonel walked away, Holloway approached. Captain, she turned, saw him, smiled slightly. Sergeant Holloway, shouldn't you be resting? I was, then I heard you were grounded. Was being the operative word. What changed? Thorne looked back at her aircraft. The ground crew was already swarming over it, checking for damage. Nothing changed. I just decided regulations matter less than lives. They'll come after you for this. Probably. Was it worth it? She met his eyes. 20 Rangers went home today who wouldn't have otherwise, you tell me. Holloway didn't have an answer for that. Thorne patted his shoulder and started walking toward debriefing. Then she paused, looking back. Your team's got a mission in 2 days, Northern Province. I saw the briefing. You're not supposed to have access to operational briefings. I'm not supposed to do a lot of things, Sergeant. She smiled. I'll be on standby just in case. Thorne, Evelyn, when we're not in front of brass, call me Evelyn. Evelyn, you're going to get yourself court-martialed. Her smile faded. My grandfather used to say there are worse things than ending your career, letting someone die when you could have saved them, for instance. She walked away before Holloway could respond. He stood on the flight line, watching the ground crew work on the scarred A-10, and wondered how long someone could sustain that kind of dedication before it broke them. 2 days later, his team rolled out for their mission. It went smooth. No contact, clean extraction. Thorne never appeared on the radio. Holloway was simultaneously relieved and disappointed. Back at base, he heard she'd flown 3 other sorties that day, all of them supporting units in heavier contact, all of them successful. The pattern continued for weeks. Thorne flew constantly, always appearing where the fighting was worst, always pushing the limits of her aircraft and herself. Command tried to stop her. Formal reprimands, restrictions on flight hours, reassignment orders. She ignored it all with a kind of serene defiance that would have been insubordination in anyone else but somehow seemed like dedication in her. The brass didn't know what to do with her. She was too valuable to discharge, too effective to permanently ground, too popular with the troops to make an example of, so they settled into an uneasy détente. They gave orders. She followed them when it suited her and ignored them when lives were at stake, and everyone pretended not to notice. Holloway's deployment was winding down, 3 weeks left in country. His team had made it through 8 months with no fatalities. 3 men wounded, all recovered. By any measure, it was a successful deployment. On one of their final missions, a simple village patrol, Holloway's convoy was hit by a sophisticated ambush. RPGs from multiple angles coordinated small arms fire, IEDs blocking the route forward and back. It was the kind of ambush designed not to harass but to annihilate. Within 30 seconds, 2 vehicles were disabled. Within a minute, they were taking casualties. Holloway called for air support, his voice tight with controlled panic. The response came immediately, not from command, from Thorne. Viper 6, Hatchet 1, I'm 3 minutes out. I need you to mark your furthest position. Holloway's hands shook as he popped red smoke. Hatchet 1 were taking effective fire from north and west. Multiple RPG positions. We need danger close. Copy. Danger close authorized. Keep your heads down, gentlemen. The A-10 appeared like an avenging angel, nose down, engine screaming. Thorne came in so low that Holloway felt the wash from the turbofans. The cannon erupted. The world became noise. The northern positions evaporated. Thorne pulled up, banked hard, dove again. This time from the west. The cannon walked across enemy positions with mechanical precision. Then something changed. The A-10's left engine started trailing smoke. Holloway saw it immediately. Hatchet 1, you're hit, you're trailing smoke. Thorne's response was calm as ever. Copy, Viper 6, I see it, one more pass. Negative, RTB immediately, we can. One more pass, Sergeant. The A-10 dove again, engine smoking, airframe shuddering. The cannon fired in a long, sustained burst that emptied the drum. Every remaining enemy position went silent. When Thorne pulled up this time, the left engine was trailing black smoke and flames. Hatchet 1, eject, Holloway screamed into the radio. I'm 5 clicks from base, Thorne said. Her voice finally showed strain. I can make it. Holloway watched the crippled aircraft limp away, leaving a trail of smoke across the clear desert sky. His convoy was safe. The ambush was broken. But all he could think about was that A-10 dying in the air, and the pilot who'd refused to leave. The A-10 made it 3 clicks before the left engine exploded. Holloway heard it over the radio. The sharp bang, the sudden change in engine noise. Then Thorne's voice, tight now, stressed. Bagram Tower, Hatchet 1 declaring emergency. Left engine fire, loss of hydraulics. Attempting single-engine approach. The tower's response was professional, clipped. Instructions for emergency landing. Fire crews scrambling. Holloway abandoned his convoy and commandeered the fastest Humvee. Davies drove while Holloway listened to the radio traffic, willing that aircraft to stay in the air. Hatchet 1, you're coming in too fast. Wave off and eject. Negative, Tower, I can grease this. Captain Thorne, that is a direct order, eject now. Brief pause, then Tower, Hatchet 1, with respect, I'm saving this airframe. These things are too expensive to throw away. Holloway almost laughed despite his terror. Even facing death, she was thinking about the aircraft. The base was chaos when they arrived. Every vehicle on the flight line, every person staring at the sky. Holloway pushed through the crowd to the runway edge. He could see the A-10 now, limping in from the east, one engine dead, the other screaming. Black smoke trailed behind it like a funeral shroud. The approach was wrong, too fast, too steep. The aircraft yawed hard left, the dead engine creating asymmetric drag. Thorne was fighting the stick. Holloway could see it in how the nose bobbed and weaved. 200 feet. The landing gear deployed. 100 feet. The A-10 dropped like a stone. 50 feet. Thorne pulled the nose up hard. The aircraft seemed to hang in the air for an impossible moment. Then the main gear touched. Hard, so hard the aircraft bounced, but Thorne held it, forced it down again. The nose gear slammed onto concrete. The aircraft slewed left, right. Thorne was fighting it, using differential braking, the rudder, everything she had. The A-10 finally stopped 200 feet from the end of the runway, canted at an angle, smoke pouring from the dead engine. The canopy blew. Thorne climbed out slowly, methodically, even now doing her post-egress checklist by the book. When her boots hit the tarmac, she took 3 steps away from the aircraft and then her knees buckled. Holloway ran. He reached her before the medical team, caught her before she fell. She looked up at him, face pale, eyes unfocused. Did your men make it out? Everyone's alive because of you, she smiled. Good, that's good. Then she passed out. The medical evaluation showed exhaustion, dehydration, and stress fractures in both hands from gripping the stick too hard during the landing. They hospitalized her for 3 days. Holloway visited every day, sometimes with Davies, sometimes alone. On the third day, she was sitting up, eating terrible hospital food, looking almost normal. "They're sending me home," she said without preamble. "Medical discharge. No. Reassignment, training command. Apparently, they've decided I'm too valuable to lose but too dangerous to keep in theater." Holloway didn't know what to say. Thorne set down her fork, looking out the small window at the flight line. 15 months in country, 273 combat sorties, 0 pilots lost on my watch. You saved a lot of lives, Evelyn, not enough. That's impossible math, she looked at him. My grandfather saved 15 men the day he died. Stayed in the air too long, took too much damage, but he got them all out. Then his bird went down over the jungle and nobody could reach him. 15 men lived because he died. And you've saved hundreds because you lived. Have I? Or did I just delay the inevitable? Holloway pulled a chair close. Listen to me. Every soldier who came home because you were overhead, they've got families, kids, people who love them. You didn't just save them. You saved everyone who would have lost them. Thorne was quiet for a long time. Finally she said, "I wish my grandfather could have met you. You're a good man, Sergeant. I wish I could have met him." "He raised a hell of a granddaughter," she laughed, but it sounded sad. "He didn't raise me. He died before I was born, remember?" "No," Holloway said. "He raised you through your grandmother's stories, through the weight of his name, through the example he set. He raised you into exactly the kind of pilot he was, the kind who stays until everyone makes it home." Tears welled in Thorne's eyes. She wiped them away quickly, professionally. "I don't want to go home. I want to keep flying." "Then you'll fly in training command. You'll teach the next generation of pilots how to do what you do. You'll multiply yourself." "It's not the same." "No," Holloway agreed. "It's better because impact isn't measured in missions, it's measured in legacy." They sat in silence for a while. Outside, aircraft took off and landed. The war continued without pause, as it always did. Finally, Thorne said, "Will you do something for me?" "Anything. When you get home, when you see your family, don't tell them war stories. Don't make this place sound heroic or noble. Tell them the truth. That it's hard and it's ugly, and the only thing that makes it bearable is knowing you've got people who won't let you fall. I promise. And Sergeant, thank you for giving me something to care about beyond avenging a ghost." Holloway left the hospital feeling lighter somehow. Thorne would go home. She'd train pilots. She'd pass on everything she'd learned. And somewhere, years from now, another young pilot would carry forward the name Hatchet, and they'd make it mean something. The next week passed in a blur of final missions and preparation for departure. Holloway's team was officially done. They spent their last days doing handover briefings, passing knowledge to the units that would replace them. On their final night in country, someone organized a gathering at one of the base recreation areas. Nothing official, just soldiers saying goodbye. Thorne showed up, out of uniform, wearing jeans and a t-shirt that made her look impossibly young. People gravitated to her. Not just people she'd saved, but pilots who'd flown with her, mechanics who'd maintained her aircraft, even some of the brass who tried to rein her in. Everyone wanted to shake her hand, to say thank you, to get one moment of her time. Holloway watched from a distance, drinking bad beer and feeling proud of someone he barely knew but whose impact he understood completely. Later, when the crowd thinned, Thorne found him on the edge of the gathering, looking up at the stars. "Beautiful night," she said. "Always is here, not enough light pollution." They stood together in comfortable silence. Finally Holloway said, "What will you do after training command?" "I don't know, fly as long as they'll let me. Maybe work for a defense contractor, design better aircraft, better weapons systems." She paused. "Or maybe I'll write a book, tell people what it's really like up there." "What is it really like?" She considered the question seriously. "Terrifying, exhilarating. Like being responsible for everything and capable of almost nothing simultaneously. You're up there with all this firepower, all this technology, but you're still just one person trying not to fuck up. You never fucked up, not once. I got lucky, a lot. That wasn't luck, Evelyn, that was skill and dedication and courage." She turned to look at him. "You know what the hardest part is? The silence. After you land. After the adrenaline fades.